It's been described as an emergency, a crisis and now a financial melanoma that could kill. Federal Parliament resumes tomorrow after a 5-week break, with the government no closer to getting contentious budget repair measures through the Senate. Ministers warned that tax hikes are an alternative should spending cuts be blocked, but the Palmer United parties dismissed that as political suicide. Political correspondent Sabra Lane reports.
As a new season prepares to bloom in the nation's capital, and with Parliament poised to resume after a 5-week break, the main political debate stuck on repeat.
From Operation Sovereign Borders to Operation Bring Them Home, and indeed to Operation Budget Repair, there has been a clarity of purpose to all this government has been trying to achieve.
The government's recipe for long-term fiscal repair is so far friendless on the Senate crossbenches. Now ministers, including Tony Abbott, warn if they can't get key measures through the Senate, tax hikes are an alternative.
If the budget stays weak, that means higher taxes, that comes out of your pockets, that means more borrowings, and that means higher interest rates, and again, that comes out of your pockets.
The only alternative to balance the books is to increase taxes.
We now see a desperate government keen to draw attention away from its unfair budget, threatening Australian people with tax rises.
The idea of a tax hike is winning some support.
Well, we think that the best way to go is to lift both taxes and reduce spending. This is a budget that's done quite a lot in the way of trying to reduce spending, something in the way of effectively lifting taxes through bracket creep, but probably not enough.
There's a hitch in the taxes argument. Like the contentious budget measures, higher taxes would need parliamentary approval. And that's unlikely given a Palmer United senator today described the idea as political suicide. It also runs against another oft-repeated prime ministerial quote that no government has ever taxed its way to prosperity. Democratic Labor Party Senator John Madigan says the government strategy isn't winning hearts and minds.
I can't do it on my own. You can't do it on your own. It's we. How do we get, the country to work together? Instead of, divide and conquer and playing this one off against this one. Where's it going to get us? It's just going to cause more problems than we can poke a stick at.
The government's argument for cutting spending in a range of programs has been bolstered by the Independent Parliamentary Budget Office. It's analysed government spending over the past decade and gazed into its crystal ball to examine projected spending patterns, factoring in Joe Hockey's budget. It's found over the past 10 years, government spending on average has grown at 3.6%, more than real economic growth at 3%. That, a byproduct of this historical spending growth, has been an increase in community expectations about what government can provide now and in the future, and that slowing the pace of spending growth implies successfully adjusting these expectations. Which brings us to now. In trying to adjust those community expectations, the government's used a variety of slogans on why the status quo can't be sustained. It's been a budget crisis, an emergency, a fire that needs putting out, and more recently it's become Operation Budget Repair. And today, the self-confessed Bush accountants devised a medical analogy.
We either accept that we've got a debt problem and we've got to turn it around, or we basically say, no, this is only a small melanoma on our arm, and if we just wait long enough, it'll go away. No, as a financial melanoma, it will kill you.
The Grattan Institute's John Daly says that Parliamentary Budget Office's report assumes a best-case scenario. It doesn't factor in future global shocks, for example.
The report assumes very explicitly is that real GDP growth is substantially higher for the next decade than it's been for the last decade. In essence, it assumes a quite constant level of economic sunshine for a decade. Now, maybe that will happen, but maybe it won't.
On future spending patterns, the report found the National Disability Insurance Scheme and Mr Abbott's pet paid parental leave scheme will account for nearly 20% of the growth in total spending over the next decade. And even with the planned cuts in growth to pensions and Medicare of $7 and $2 billion respectively, the cost of the two programs will continue to rise into the future.
I think that, we've got to take on board things that they're telling us.
John Daly believes there are immediate policy alternatives which would make the budget fairer.
If you said that we should reduce superannuation tax concessions so that essentially old rich men pay almost as much tax as young rich people, and that as a result we wouldn't be seeing 28-year-olds only getting unemployment benefits for 6 months in every 12, I'm not sure that wouldn't be a bad outcome.
With MPs back on the leather benches tomorrow, there'll be renewed focus on Senate negotiations. The higher education changes will be introduced later this week, though it seems most of the Senate crossbench are against it. But some senators say they are prepared to talk about other controversial measures.
Maybe we can do something with fuel indexation, maybe, question mark, but I haven't seen anything as yet. But, I'm willing to listen. With the GP co-payment, I'm happy, my family, we're happy to pay the GP co-payment because I can afford it. But what about the people who can't?
A question he's not alone in posing, and so far, one he believes the government can't answer.
Summer Lane reporting.